Hello and welcome everyone out there. It is episode 2 of the resurrection or revival of the Writer's Room. It is I, your host, J.Ishiro, author and alien in a human suit, and beside me is, as always,
Kat, the night editor. Hello, everyone.
Everyone's favorite editor. And right now, so far, we've got, should I call you BGC or your other name?
Oh, yeah, BGC is great.
BGC is with us yesterday because he was on asking about short stories. And hopefully, I sent an invite out to people who wanted to talk about short stories, especially writers. And hopefully they will pop up and join us soon. But just as a before we really get started here, first off, as always, since we're going to be talking about short stories, buy mine. Care to give it a pitch, honey?
Scars, the story of an astronaut who fell to Earth and found a little friend.
Yes, it is probably the most interesting story you'll read and uplifting one about post-traumatic stress and rats.
Cool.
So there's that. Also, because of BGC's conversation before we went live, I'm finding out that a lot of you guys are getting unsubscribed from the channel. So, one, make sure you're still subscribed. Two, tell all your friends to regularly check to see if you're even subscribed anymore. It certainly does answer why I've been losing listeners and why people that I consider longtime friends are no longer popping up to hang out anymore. So, oh well. Tonight's episode is going to be about, again, short story writing. So, again, if you know anyone who was interested in the art of short story writing, definitely let them know. Tell them to tune in. And specifically what we're going to cover is beginning to end. How do you do it? What are the tips? What do you need to know? Hopefully, BGC will have some questions for us as well about that.
You can.
Okay, Yang, should I send you? You're not getting notifications when I go live, Yang? Okay, guys, everybody, please check to make sure that the bell and all that other crap's marked. Ugh.
I don't mean to laugh. It's just
what?
It just seems like the constant struggle. This is the Sisyphus struggle here.
Yeah, we really need to get over to Odyssey or something.
Yeah. Everybody, because YouTube is
crap.
it's their tube. It's not YouTube.
No.
I like that.
So, okay, you're the editor. Before we even get to the writer stuff, editor, tell us about what you have to say about short stories in general.
Well, I'm approaching it from the editor's side, the looking at the manuscript when it comes to my desk, or setting out the parameters if it's an open call, or if there's there's specific parameters that need to be met. And so I'm probably going to be approaching it from a different angle than you two are. But I will say this, if you are an aspiring writer, open calls for submissions, anthologies, looking for new blood are a wonderful way to get your foot in the door. The best way to not get noticed is to not follow directions.
Okay. BGC, I think, are you listening to us through headphones or do you have speakers on?
I am using just the built-in speakers. Are you getting some kind of...
Yeah, we're hearing a little bit of an echo, so if you could turn that down just a little bit.
Sure, hold on.
But yeah, I would have to agree. Kat and I have released a few anthologies ourselves. Whispers from the Abyss 1 and 2, available on Amazon. Both Lovecraftian-inspired short story collections, one of which has one of my stories. We edited them together, and yes, the number one way to get your story tossed immediately is to ignore the submission guidelines. We can do a whole episode on the hell of going through submissions.
Also, along with that, yes, you can follow the submission guidelines, whether they're strict or whether they're broad, but look at who it is who's putting out the anthology or the collection, or who's putting out the call, and see what types of stories they have published in the past. I also edited for the Escape Artists for a time. This was years ago. I would say when they were at their best. And one thing that got me was how many people would.
BGC, we're getting echo even louder still.
Damn, hold on. Let me see what.
See if you can get headphones.
Just double check and see what happens. All right. I'm got nothing else except me, and just checking, making sure all my inputs are good. And
all right. Don't worry about it. We'll just we'll power on through.
Okay.
But you'd get people where I edited for the horror side, and they'd send a story that had ghosts or had vampires or had demons or other things like that, but it wasn't a horror story. It was a romance story, or it was a straight up comedy. Now, comedy and horror do go hand in hand, but you have to have a little more of one than the other in order for it to be classified as one or the other. So just be aware of what you are submitting and the place that you are submitting it to. And because I do know that there are a lot of writers out there who do the shotgun method of getting your work out. And yes, that can work, but you win more friends by actually paying attention. Because if you do it too much, you become known as somebody who just shotguns it out there, and people are not going to pay attention to your writing, even if you do have something that fits what they're looking for.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. We had a woman who would keep submitting to us no matter what the open call was. And there's nothing like having a open call for 2,000 to 5,000 word stories in the Lovecraftian mythos, and getting somebody's lovely, cute story about a woman visiting a child in a wheelchair at the hospital and making him have a good day.
Yeah, that's.
And having nothing, you get to the end, it's like, what the hell did this have to do with Lovecraft?
Well, we were reading it, it's like, okay, it's going to have the worst payoff or it's going to have the best payoff. Come on.
And we get to the end, it's like, this is just a feel-good story about a kid in a wheelchair. What the hell is this?
Yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, dude.
So I'm sorry, BGC. I have not read what you sent to Ishi or was part of most of your conversation. Have you submitted to anthologies or compilations, or just submitted in general? And what was your experience?
Simply put, I haven't done it yet. I've been extremely, besides being a master at self-sabotage, I've been a master at being afraid, which is not something to master, but you know what I mean. So therefore, thus far, I haven't. I have subscribed to a whole couple. I don't know how good they are, but I get a whole bunch of like daily newsletters from, what is it called? Writing something free. It's called Freedom with Writing. There's another one, I'm trying to remember, Filthy Rich Writer. And it's kind of like, it is a service that's gathering all the different like available like open calls, and like it dumps them into my inbox as an email newsletter, but I've never acted on any of them. So, and again, I did that because frankly, I just feel I haven't been ready in terms
of. So this is Filthy Rich Writers and Freedom in Writing?
Yes.
Okay.
And you haven't responded because you didn't feel ready?
Correct. And that is, on some level, there is objective credibility to that. But then, frankly, to be blunt, it's just about me being. You can be frightened of failure, but you can also be frightened of success. But either way, you wind up frightened, and meaning like you become paralyzed. And I have been and am still prone to being a person that, in terms of the 3 Fs, fight, flight, or freeze. I've been like most of my life in freeze mode.
Would it help at all? And I'm just talking from my own experience with that. I'm not saying that I'm comparing your experience to my experience. I'm just talking for what works for me. When there's something that I recognize I'm having that reaction to, I just try to break it down, they keep it simple, stupid method of, well, this is just something I have to do. And then once I do it, I don't think about it at all. I don't think about consequences moving forward, what next steps are, unless it's something that is directly on my plate that I have to deal with right this second. I don't think about it. Would something like that help with your writing, where it's just, well, I'm just going to write this and get it there, and then I'm not going to think about it? Would that help?
It may, and I see where you're going with this. And by the way, no, I'm not a millennial. I can appreciate when people tell me their experiences, and I am able to do something that, unfortunately, it seems that millennials are very sorely tasked at being able to do, which is being able to empathize and put myself in or extract the information I need about what your conveyance about your experiences are. Anyway, the thing is, I think it's worth a shot, is what I'm trying to say. I'll give it a shot, because I don't, there is something along those lines that seems parallel to it, which is the core element of like Stephen Pressfield, talking about like resistance. And I find that what you're saying is sort of like has elements of that, where he approaches it like, be a workman approach. You take on to the work and you just do it, and then don't think about anything else. And then once it's done, then you move on. And that's what I'm getting. And like, it seems to parallel that. And I brought that up because it seems like, well, Pressfield, well, at least a digest that I watch, it's like this little motivational video, which is sort of like a little encapsulation of Pressfield's core philosophy, or I use that as a little bit of a motivator now and then. And I'm just getting a parallel. So long and short of it is, I will give that a shot. What you just suggested, I'll give that a shot, because it's I'm open to anything.
Okay, we got a question.
Horizon Talker, on getting into anthologies, is it better to stick to your strengths or stretch a little and try to get noticed?
These days, I would say that it's kind of a hard call, because the publishing world is so divided right now that I'm still getting a feel for this new alternate industry that's beginning to crop up with, like, is it Silver Empire Publishing, and I'm trying to remember a few of the others. Essentially, where it's not crazy, not woke publishers. The problem with so many of the lit mags right now that you would traditionally submit to are so crazy woke that, I mean, if you're not a black, half gay Eskimo black dude with a trans vagina, you're not going to get published.
I'm sorry. Were you going to say something?
No.
Okay.
So yeah, unless you have a good sense of like if it's like Red Room Publishing, who although they publish really super extreme dark horror, I mean, you would never know this, by the way. Red Room Publishing will publish the darkest, most vile, Clive Barker-esque horror stories. They're ran by Christians, so they don't care what you write. Yeah, you wouldn't figure by what they publish. Or if it's Silver Empire, where they're libertarian, they don't give a shit, they'll publish your stuff. But if it's a Asimov magazine, forget it.
Well, I'd also say, if you are first starting out as a writer, and you're doing short stories and you're submitting to different places, you're just trying to get your name out there. So I would say, like I said, follow the guidelines, follow the rules. If you read instructions or you read what the topic is and you're like, you know what, that's a little beyond me, that's okay. You can also, if you read it and you're like, I like this challenge, and let's say you don't meet the challenge, you know what, that's okay. At this point in the game, the best thing you can do is write as much content as you can, because even if it doesn't get submitted or even accepted by one particular place, you have it on the back burner to submit to some other place. It's ready to go. Or, if you get a stack of stories that either don't get submitted to places or don't get accepted, you can still put them together and publish them yourself. So the best thing you can do is focus on building content and practicing your craft.
I can't confirm this because, to be honest with you, the only anthologies I've ever been published in that weren't comics, I've been published in comics anthologies. All the prose anthologies I've ever written or I've ever been in, I published myself. Just to give you a sense. Well, no, I take that back. I was on the Escape Artists, and that had nothing to do with you.
Yeah, no.
So I did have a story published on the Escape Artists. Was it?
I don't remember the year anymore.
Was it? It wasn't Escape Pod. It was Pseudopod.
Yeah, it was
Pseudopod. I did have a story on Pseudopod. But really, at this day and age, what I'm hearing more and more from other writers, such as David J. West and Nick Cole, is the general consensus is, unless it's a surefire thing or your friends are doing it, the best method right now is write your short story, sell it for 99 cents on Kindle, get to the next one. And once you've got like maybe 5 or 6 of these or 20, depending on if you're verbose or not, put them all in anthology and then release that on Kindle as well and make it print on demand.
On the last part about that, is it better to stretch? Always stretch yourself. Really, even if you're just writing a short story that you got to get out, if there's like an element that you can, work on something that maybe you're not so good on, like action or romance or dialogue or whatever it is that you feel you are weak in for your storytelling, take any opportunity that comes your way to work on it.
Okay. BGC?
No, that's awesome. And I definitely will take everything you're saying and put it to use, because for me, finding a way to like overcome the fear is the thing. And I'm starting to do that, but I need to like amp it up.
Really, the best method, I would say, and this is not just you, but everyone listening, here's the thing about short story writing, okay? If you're intending to submit to somebody else, first rule, number one above all, everybody wants 5,000 words. Seriously, they want 5,000 words. Now, some anthologies might say, we stop paying after 5,000 words, but write as much as you want. But generally, everybody wants 5,000 words. To give you a sense of what 5,000 words is, that's typically a standard chapter of a book. So what you're doing is you're not telling a fully encapsulated story usually. That's why Scars started as a short story and became a novella, is because I realized I couldn't tell what I wanted to in 5,000 words. So it ended up being 25,000. It's like 25,000 words. So 5 times the length. Death War Grease Paint is, I think, 15,000 words. And I have one short story I have not yet published that is almost 5,000. And really, when you're doing a short story, it's more of an impression. It's more of that first act. You're taking the character and you give a quick vision or impression of who they are and what their world is. You establish what you need. You give a framing device. You introduce that conflict, and then you get right to them facing it and making a choice. Now, the thing about a full, novel or novella is you usually take the story to resolution. Often a short story, on the other hand, unless you've got a very concrete idea in your head, you're just giving the key points. So, for instance, I had the 5,000 word story I did is about essentially it's a sci-fi story. It's about a suicide bomber, and the person is the bomb. You get a faint through his flashbacks. You get a faint sense of who and why he's doing it, his plan, but literally the entire story is him going from an alleyway, walking to a subway, and detonating. And the twist is how he detonates, which if I tell you, it ruins it. So I can't tell you. It's kind of a shock. So yeah, see, that's a very small slice. I could have taken the story and just extended it out to a novella line about the weird group he's part of, this weird ideology that I touch upon in the short story. I could have fleshed that out. I could have gotten into the training, which I only touch upon in the short story. I could have talked about his prepping and all the other things he did to infiltrate the area, but no, I only touch upon it in the short story. I've really started with the final scene. He's going to go detonate, and you get that. And there's your short story. Did I make that? Is that pretty clear?
Yes, most definitely.
And a lot of people get strung up, including me. They get tangled up in trying to tell a novel when you're not really doing that. Even when I did Death Wore Grease Paint, which is technically a short story. Technically, I mean, 15,000 words is a long form short story, I guess.
It's only a short story because it's not long enough to be a novella.
Yeah, it's starting to get to novella length. That's true. I thought, okay, it's going to be a story about a Steve-O-esque type character who was a clown on a public access television show he reads the Necronomicon and decides, hey, this is great material for my show. And
I love it.
I got so caught up in the lead up to it and the introduction of one extra character and the back and forth between these two characters blew the story up 3 times the length it was supposed to be. And so that should give you a sense. Often these short stories, you don't want big groups of people. Usually it's about one person. Another good format for a short story, for instance, are confessionals, where it's kind of this idea that the storyteller's sitting down and telling you, okay, I'm going to let you in on something very personal that happened to me. That's usually a good framing one. The number one thing to study for short stories, the master of short stories, Harlan Ellison.
I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah. And even he suffered from occasionally, oh, wait, this isn't a short story anymore. He claims he never wrote anything other than short stories. Bullshit. A Boy and His Dog or Vic and Blood is a novella. Any thoughts, Brian? Oh, sorry.
No, I'm only familiar, honestly, with a little bit of Night and the Enemy. Actually, I read the graphic novel adaptation of that. And Deathbird, which I read.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's a novella as well. Deathbird's incredible. That's my favorite by him.
Yeah, that was an incredible, like the anthology was like, well, the Deathbird story, but there was all these others in it. And it's like, personally, the one that like shook me to my core. And I was such a young, impressionable, like 20-something-year-old, so tender and and impressionable was the Whimper of Whipped Dogs, which is such a like messed up story, and it was so like, but in some ways eerily prophetic, you know.
Well, yeah, that is the one thing I'll warn. Some of his anthologies are a lot of fun. Deathbird I really liked, but that one is probably his darkest. Even darker than I Have No Mouth. Yet I Must Scream.
Really dark.
I Must Scream. Oh my God.
That is a tour de force in how to tell a huge encompassing story in a short amount of time.
Very true.
Really, if I had really thought about it, I probably should have pulled that out and used that as an example to show you how he accomplished it.
I was going to offer, what would you think of Cormac McCarthy's The Road, which I did barely finish. Actually, I had to put it down several times, but it technically is still a novel, isn't it? In terms of depth and just in word count alone. But it felt to me, I brought it up because to me, the structuring is very akin to the short story where you only have really two characters. That's why I brought it up, but it is, you mentioned that like having the scope of your central characters being very attenuated, very, very small, only like one, ideally, maybe two. And like, that just all of a sudden made me think of like The Road, which I think everybody should read. But anyway, but that's a little bit of I'm kind of going off on a detour. Sorry about that.
Okay, Kat, we've got a question here.
Underworld. Most horror story genre has been taken over by the lady romance novels. Yeah, thanks, Anne Rice. Like, was it a few years ago? All the winners of the Horror Story Awards was romance stories.
Yeah, well, there's two reasons for that, actually. It wasn't Anne Rice, it was Twilight that did it.
It was Twilight.
Here's the problem with that. What happened is it isn't just that all these romance novels suddenly put in a supernatural twist and now it's supposedly being marketed as horror. It's also that the Horror Writers Association and the publishers all got hijacked by feminists.
Mm-hmm.
And I could give you the down and dirty details of how they did it, but I would probably get into legal trouble. And Kat actually watched it happen herself at, can I say, or
Mm-hmm. Oh, what at
Escape Artists.
Oh, we've been public about it.
Yeah, we've been public. We wouldn't. Well, that they were public about it, so I don't think that's an issue. But
no.
Yeah, there was the hijacking there. Same thing. It was hijacked.
Well, the fact that there was a story that came across my desk that was like, this is romance. What the heck is it being sent to horror? And I rejected it. And then 2 months later, I heard it on their show. I'm like, wait, I rejected this. And I was thinking, well, maybe the writer got my reasons why it was rejected and made some changes and resubmitted it. And nope, it was resubmitted completely the same. No editing whatsoever. And it was just this romance stuff. Like, this isn't horror. Why did you putting this on the show when there were other things that way more deserved it?
I really, 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 sorry, a lot of reallys there. Wish Fiona was on right now, because she is like, again, this is like her material. This is, as she would say, this is my wheelhouse as far as rants are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
She can give you a wonderful tirade on exactly this problem. This is her specialty. And I think that specifically, that horror and sci-fi has been hijacked by romance bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
She has a fury against that with the fury of 1,000 suns,
Mm-hmm.
really.
By the way, with that goes back to my first point of know the place that you're submitting to. If they say, oh, we do horror, we do, the dark visceral stuff, but everything that you read from them, or if it's an audio anthology that you hear from them, is of a certain tone, that gives you an idea of what types of stories their editors are looking for, regardless of what is on the open call. Lots of things to consider. Owen, hey Owen, can I make a short comic that's an ongoing story in short chapters? What's the amount of page numbers do you recommend I do?
24. And if you want an example of exactly how to do that, check out Utopiates by me. Well, Kat and I, actually,
Mm-hmm.
she helped draw that one.
Specifically, issue 1.
Yeah, that is exactly how that got started. Claire, by the way, did you not get an invite? I actually sent you an invite for tonight since you're a writer. And do you want one? Let's see.
Do you primarily write prose BGC, or have you considered doing comics?
Oh, that's funny you should bring that up. I got in the writing bug long before because of comics, I guess. And I still would like to do comics. And when I was much younger, I had the opportunity to work as an intern for Marvel. This was long, long, long before it became the shit show that it is now. Short of it is, yes, I'd love to, and I've thought about it, but now I'm actually switching gears and direction to doing traditional prose.
Cool. Cool. Really neat. What did you do when you were interning?
I honestly, I was going to. It never worked out because, unfortunately, I don't want to get into it too much, but like, it's just, it was a very interesting. I had a very interesting household, and basically, they were very. They didn't like the fact that I was going to try to do it, and so I was given the opportunity, and then I had the opportunity to take it away. So I was going to be working with artists at the time, as well as with some writers. I was in high school at the time, my last year of at the special magnet school for the special kids. That the art school, what is it called? FH LaGuardia in New York City, and I got my in. I forget how, but it was like a friend of a friend in the faculty, and I got there. And anyway, that's ancient history. But
Okay, got a fun comment here.
Neostar says seems a lot of feminists are some closet perverts.
I think they all are actually. They're really
They are.
pent up, and that's why they're all crazy.
And Owen asks if Utopiates is on Amazon, and it is.
Yes, it is under my comics writing name, which I have now ditched, Josh Finney.
Yes.
Which I no longer use because, Jesus, I should have realized, use the middle name, not the first name, because everyone, Jack Finney, one of the most successful sci-fi writers of the 20th century, wrote The Body Snatchers, and there was one other.
Audible was sending some of his works my way.
So yeah, they kept thinking, people would either remember me as Jack Finney or they do searches and get Jack Finney. Mm-hmm. But you want Utopiates, and that is available on Amazon.
Yep.
Okay.
Trenton, what would make a romance a horror story would be if at the climax, when the deed is about to be done, the woman has a Cthulhu snatch and swallows him whole into a dimension of sexual frustration.
I like that. I actually like that.
Or Jason Voorhees puts an axe through their head.
Wow, I'm like picturing her box as the box from Hellblazer. Or not Laser, sorry, Hellraiser.
Well, technically speaking, I believe Cabal by Clive Barker has a romance subplot, and the movie has some of it.
Oh, between
Boone and
the stepmom.
Yeah, but there's also two of the monsters apparently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Shinosazi, I think.
There you go. See, you know what's up.
I like Shinosazi.
Dark Stranger, with today's views in politics, how would one go about writing characters seen as part of the ultimate evils, like former Confederate soldiers, Rooster Cogburn, and Nazis Valkyrie?
How would one go about writing it?
Writing characters seen as part of the ultimate evils.
Well, it depends on how you approach it, really. Granted, you're going to have a stigma attached to it no matter what you do at that point. People are going to read into whatever you're saying. But at the same time, there is something to be said for, I'm going to throw some examples out there for you. Granted, they weren't Nazis, but All Quiet on the Western Front was about the Germans in World War I, and they were the enemy. And that was a very, very good story, and it was very necessary. I'm sure there are plenty of fantasy stories where the person's fighting on the wrong side. Really, it depends on how you go about portraying it. Is this going to be some sort of the glory of the South kind of thing? Or is this, a hardened war story? Or is this a, Southerner after the war has been lost and he's struggling and he'd been a Confederate soldier and he's now looked down upon for it? Or, there's any number of ways to approach it.
I'd say, what's your goal with the story? What's the point you're making?
Let's see.
Cesario. Oh, that's 2 Neostar.
Okay, sorry.
Owen, J.Ishiro Finney, Jack Finney, Utopia's got it. I wonder if I should make myself a pen name. My middle name is Thomas, so maybe Thomas Lister would be a cool pen name.
Yeah, actually, it would. Oh God, what was the first name of Lister on Red Dwarf?
Unfortunately, I never
Oh,
watched
you never
Red
watched
Dwarf.
that?
No. But strangely enough, I never saw Red Dwarf.
Oh, okay.
You'd think I would have, considering both of my parents loved British television.
I think another thing I would bring up, since we're on the topic of short stories, by the way, is if you're doing comics, okay? First off, comics and short stories are a very limited market. The thing is that typically a short story could be stretched out to a full graphic novel, or maybe half a graphic novel. I mean, I would have to say most 5,000 word short stories could probably be made into 48-page graphic novels or 2-issue comics, to give you a sense.
I would say it depends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
BGC?
Oh, well.
No, we've got some weird noises in the background. Are you cutting something, or?
No, it's just my squeaky table.
Oh, okay.
I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Fair enough. I wanted to respond about the previous question, but I think
Sure, go right ahead.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah, just dovetail off of what you said. It's all about the intent and your direction, and to me, ultimately, it's like you're going to deal with those. Well, they're hot topic issues, and they always will be for needless. I have to mention as to why. But the thing is, if you're going to make a protagonist within that environment, make them a protagonist. Are they someone who decides to? They've come to the point where they have a crisis of conscience. In terms of a Confederate realizes he's on the wrong side of history, or if there's a Nazi who has this similar crisis of conscience in terms of. Or maybe he is already a character where this is a character concept of mine I'm still playing around with, where he is not, he's definitely against the Nazis, and he's decided to infiltrate them. He's infiltrating them because he's part of a resistance movement, which is actually, I decided to take a variant of that. It's an actual resistance movement in World War II that died, unfortunately, very quickly because it was non-violent. And in the storyline that I'm thinking of conceptualizing it, I decided to make it a violent. They decided to go full out guerrilla insurgent. It's called the Viceroys, and so maybe he's a member of the Viceroys, and he's infiltrated the SS, and he's going to do a variation of the Valkyrie scenario.
Okay, got a comment here.
Oh, Aloe says, I wish your Project Bombshell girl still existed.
I do too. And I mean, if I can get myself an artist, hey, I've got an idea, listeners. You go out there and you start harassing artists to work with me. Tell them what a swell idea this is and how it really needs to happen. And honestly, I do think that it would do well if I could get this thing off the ground, if I could actually find a reliable artist. Marv says that he read Scars this morning and really enjoyed it. He's been recommending it to friends. Marv, thank you. Again, thank you very much. As I said before, that is probably the best thing I've ever written, and obviously the most personal thing I've ever written. So thank you for giving it your time and for giving it a read. And please review it on Amazon. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one.
Trenton, that's to Dark Stranger.
Oh, okay. Maybe I should let you control the chat.
Niscaro, I got a couple of story ideas that feature villains who are ex-Nazi scientists. Well, kinda. Though in both cases, it was more for the money than anything.
So, I think another thing about short stories, how they've usually come to me. I mean, that's part of the thing is your method. Usually the way that I write is that an idea will start forming in my head and it'll take time. And as ideas start to fall together, at some point it will click and I'll have kind of an impression of the beginning, middle, and end already in my mind. And I'll just sit down and start writing out the scenes that are in my head that want to come out, that want to be on the page. And once those are all out on the page, once I've got all of that out of my head, then it's time to start thinking about, okay, how to arrange these? Where do they go? How do I fit them together? And what kind of story is this going to be? Is this going to be a short story? Is it going to be something more? So yeah, most of my stuff begins with there's usually a scene burning to get out, and that's how it starts. With the one and only exception being Strangely Case File Arkham. And that was strictly people wanted me to do something Cthulhu themed. So I did.
Cool.
Does anybody else have questions? Oh, come on. Somebody's got to have a question.
So, BGC, what subject matter do you usually write in, or that you have had works on? You mentioned that you had interned at Marvel, and you talked that you did have some stories. Are these horror? Are these sci-fi? Are these drama or introspective? What do you like to write?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. Thank you very much. The thing about that is I think I'm more of a person that likes to blend genres, or try to, but with a predominance in one genre. So with, for instance, the fantasy endeavor that I'm doing, it is pretty much in that realm, but there are elements of gaslight punk and steampunk, and also some elements of the Lovecraftian in terms of some of the big bads. A different story that I had been kind of working on and off is also heavily Lovecraftian, but along the lines of, what if the X-Men had to fight the old gods, and what if the X-Men weren't mutants, but rather they were an expression of the concept of the Gaia concept, where Gaia is this consciousness, and every so many tens of thousands of years, she initiates a defense mechanism in the form of super beings. And whenever she's going through a rebirthing cycle, that's still on the shelf right now. A lot of the big concept, that's the essence of it. So the long and short of it is, I like working with trying to blend at least two genres, but having one having the major predominance in terms of its tone and its theme.
Okay,
Nice.
cool.
Paul, would it be prohibitively difficult to organize an anthology for the YouTube audience to submit to for publishing on Amazon?
Not at all. It really depends on if you just, what you need is the wherewithal to sit down and read through all the submissions, if you're willing to dedicate the time, willing to pay the writers. And my advice, be a decent person, pay up front. Don't do the royalty thing, just pay up front.
It'll also save your sanity.
Yes, it will. Pro rates typically go somewhere between, what was it last time? Professional rates, 5 to 7 cents a word?
Yeah.
And anything below that is amateur rate, so 4 cents to 1 cent a word. Or you'll do a flat fee for the story, like $100 for the story done, or 125. And if you're willing to do that, edit it together and format it, anybody can do this. But make sure you have your contract.
Yes.
Definitely make sure you have your contracts. But yeah, that wouldn't be hard to do at all. Actually, that's the one thing I'm a little shocked, is that a lot of these new non-woke publishers aren't doing more anthologies to get people noticed. Oh, wait.
Let's see. Nascaro, yeah, I know about that. I've got a lot of scenes in my head that were pretty much where stories started. Stringing them together, on the other hand.
Yeah, get those scenes out. Do not wait till you get to that point in the book. Get them on paper. And when you start writing your story, trust me, you'll rewrite it. Stringing them together, that's just technical. That's the art of storytelling, learning how to structure a narrative. You can learn that. That's actually that's the easier part, learning how to do that. The ideas and actually constructing sentences that will draw people from one to the next is the hard part. Oh, good question here.
Panda Power, what's the difference between a novella and a light novel?
From what I understand, a light novel is easy reading. It's of a certain style. It's usually between 100 and 150 pages.
I believe so, yeah.
Novellas are traditionally anywhere between 25,000 words and 75,000 words. That's it. And those are soft rules, not hard rules whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Trenton, my problem is all my ideas, once I did start writing, started ballooning. So how do you control the fluff or filler getting out of hand?
Kat?
You get an editor. No.
How do you do it for me?
No, if you have an editor or somebody that you trust, they'll take a look at it and they'll say, this is needed, this is not. If you don't, basically, you have to be willing to look at what you write and think about what is absolutely needed in order to tell this story, especially if you're doing short stories. If you have a character who, he's gonna, part of the story is that he's going on the subway and he really doesn't want to go to his job. We've all had deadbeat jobs. That's fine. Unless he's actually going to get to that destination, and unless we are actually going to interact with said coworkers that he hates, you don't really need to get into why he hates his job or the particulars, unless it has something specific to do with the story.
Relevance.
Yeah, relevance. So basically, unless it's something relevant to the story, you either don't need it or you don't need to get too in depth into it. Just enough to give the audience the right impression that you want to leave them with, so that things in the story make sense.
This is a new question.
I always hear people who self-publish on Amazon emphasize the importance of a cover. These people are talking novels. How important are they for short stories and novellas? Extremely important.
Doesn't matter the story length. That cover is the number one thing that's going to make sure your book is even looked at. An unprofessional cover will get you skipped immediately. The reason being is that when people are browsing through those hundreds of thousands of books on their Kindle or just on the web page for Amazon, the first thing their brain's going to do is look at every amateur cover and say, okay, that's a nobody. Don't bother. I don't need to look at that. And so you always want the best damn cover you can get. Second, having a good cover image is not enough. And this is another one a lot of people don't understand. It's a huge mistake, is you can get a pro artist to do a really good cover, and then they do the typesetting themselves. And what I mean by that is the font work, the graphic design. So if you have a great art piece, and suddenly like the title's done in like Times New Roman, and the margins are all off, or the placement's really unprofessional, that's again going to get you skipped right away, as people say, okay, that's bullshit, that's not a real cover. So yeah, covers are vital.
I would like to also point out your title, the title of your story. Do not pick a title that is a song or an extremely well-known movie or other things like that. Basically, do a Google search for the title that you want to use. And if 20 different things pop up with that exact same title, and they are well known, especially if it's, by known artists, don't use it. because you're just going to get lost in the shuffle, especially on Amazon.
Let me tell you how many people have made the stupid mistake of liking the Rolling Stones, thinking, "Hey, Sympathy for the Devil's a great title for a horror story."
Yep.
And then when the people go on, they're at a convention and like, "Hey, I like your work. Hey, you should check out my story, Sympathy for the Devil." So they go home and they type this into Google, and what do you think they get? They get the Rolling Stones
Mm-hmm.
and everybody else who named their story after that.
Yep.
Now, granted, Scars is not the most creative title, I suppose. But Scars by J.Ishiro, on the other hand, is a much easier thing to find than something named after a Rolling Stones song.
Mm-hmm.
Worse would be if you're even, oh, look who's here.
Hi,
Hello.
Tiana.
It's everybody's favorite
Derpy
hater,
Dragon.
Derpy Dragon, who hates romance stories pretending to be sci-fi and horror.
Yeah. Oh man. It would be so bad if most of them said, "Hey, we're romance primary," but no.
I will
No.
be right back. I'm sorry, you just got in, Fiona, and I gotta step away for 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
So we're talking about the art of short story writing, and you have anything you want to add to that right now?
Huh. As far as short stories go?
Yeah, what's your advice to new writers?
Well, if I was going to do a short story, I'd probably just plot it out as quick as I could. So that way you know what kind of points to hit within the short story. Because sometimes some people turn the short stories into like full-blown novellas or a series.
Yeah, a technique that I used to see a lot, at least in the 80s and 90s, it's not done as much anymore, is that a lot of writers would write a first chapter, and then it would then they would sell it as a short story, and if it did well, they would turn it into a novel, and that would be the first chapter of the novel.
Well, I guess the Kindle Villa stuff is kind of doing that now. Like, it's taken off, but I can also notice that the sponsored ads are intruding. Like,
Yeah.
no.
Explain that a little bit more.
Oh man, like when you're just doing general search results on the tags within Kindle Villa, you'll see sponsored, non-Kindle Villa stuff that's smattered within everything. It's like, no, Amazon, no, you can't even get that correct.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish the search engine on Amazon still worked correctly. That thing is broken. It used to be great.
I mean, I get that people pay for the sponsored ads, but it should target what it's supposed to, but far too often it doesn't.
Yeah. So have you ever actually written any short stories, or are you primarily doing your ongoing serialized stuff?
Mostly the ongoing serialized stuff. When I was in school, I did a handful of short stories, but I guess the thing with short stories, like if you have some sort of setting you want to write in, you got to figure out a way just like, here's a little slice of some sort of character that's going through something, but to resist the urge to make it like a big ongoing thing, unless you want to do a bunch of short story serials with the same character, maybe kind of like Sherlock's Holmes type setup, where you have some reoccurring characters, but short stories are not my specialty for right now.
Actually, that's not a bad one to bring up, though, as far as short story writing. Right now, thanks to the internet, either doing it via blog or on Amazon via Kindle, Jesus. Thanks to Kindle, serialized storytelling has returned. It's kind of become a golden age of pulps again because of it. And if you do have a giant story you want to tell, you might want to try serializing it instead.
Well, technically, I could try that, but since I've already put it on my blog, it kind of invalidates like Amazon's whole, like, if you've put it somewhere else before, you can't really host it on the site.
They
It's
only if they know you did it. I mean, if you took it off your blog and then put it on Amazon, they're not going to find out.
With my luck, they'll zero in on my butt. It's like, it was her. It was her.
You did it.
But I noticed that I saw the one comment as I was coming in about like covers and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. The whole Like I've got my covers down pat. It's just I'm now looking into how to do it properly. Where it's like because yeah, the title setup can make or break your cover.
So what do you, oh, you mean the graphic design to it?
Yeah, because I've seen some covers where it pops correctly, and then I've
Mhm.
seen some covers where it's just like that's Empress Teresa level.
Exactly. You nailed it. You nailed it. Real quickly, this image here with the, I guess again, graphic design. I did this all myself. I actually, while I don't think I'm really skilled enough to consistently do comics. I mean, we nearly killed ourselves doing that.
Yeah.
Um, I am skilled enough to do graphic design. These are all images that I've done myself, for instance, just to give you a sense of what I'm capable of. And I am going to I'm going to pimp myself right now. For those of you out, no, I didn't do this. For those of you who want covers, I am very reasonable. These were done by Patrick, but I did, again, the text layout, the graphic design. Was again all me. I designed that logo for the brand. Trying to see if there's any more of our books in here in your memory.
We're using my computer.
Yeah, if it was mine, I could bring up all the book covers I did myself for our titles. Like for instance, the Whispers from the Abyss one was another one of my art pieces.
Mhm.
But yeah, I can kind of feign the painterly style here in Photoshop, and my rates usually go from about $100 to 300, depending on how complicated the piece is. So there you go. If you want a nice cover, and if you want graphic design, I'll do that for like dirt cheap, like logo design and stuff.
Mhm.
So there you go.
Nice.
Let's see.
Empress Teresa.
Yeah, do you want to tell the audience what Empress Teresa is for those who don't know?
That's a lesson in what not to do in every way, shape, or form. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You guys keep asking us to read it. No.
Okay, so Mr. Norman, basically, the Empress Teresa is like a first draft that he published onto Amazon's indie publishing setup, and I mean, it has some aspects where you're like, he almost gets it, but it's kind of like how I didn't put the first draft of Uplift Protocol on my blog because it did need work. Your first draft is always going to be Sad Panda.
I want that on a
Yeah,
shirt.
do not be an L. Ron Hubbard. Do not, and I repeat, do not just write it and publish it.
No.
Oh.
And the creator of Empress Teresa insisted that it was the bestest thing ever, and that you're assholes for thinking otherwise.
Yeah, that was the thing. Also, that's just, it has nothing to do with short story writing or even well, it does have to do with self-publishing. Don't get into arguments with people who didn't like your book.
No.
Don't stalk them and track their blogs and start harassing them regularly. Don't find all the YouTube videos that didn't like your book and start trying to destroy their lives.
That's why I try to preface my stuff on my channel to say, like, this is just my writing opinions and how the process is working for me. You might find something else, but this is just how it works for me.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, I would say also, always treat your fans well. I will even go as far as to say I had a feminist who did not care for Case File Arkham, or at least cared for the woman. She actually admitted she liked the story, but she would not say anything nice about my female portrayals. I just thanked her for the review. That's it. I didn't say anything nasty, even though it would have been fun.
All right.
Let's see. Here we go.
Bacon. So, was it a bad idea to make my last book cover written entirely in Wingdings? I'm just asking for a friend here.
Oh, geez. You know what? You joke. You're joking, but yeah. You want your cover, that font that you use or whatever that logo for your book is, the title should be legible.
Okay. I got an example here. When White Wolf. When White Wolf was first getting started, and they put out the first edition of the Wraith Handbook. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It is something that you need to see in person because the pictures don't do it justice. They had this really intricately designed cover art that I think is supposed to be chains and other things like that. And
I
then
remember.
the logo and the name Wraith is written in this very heavy font, this very gothic heavy font, but it's glow in the dark only. So you have this intricate, already slightly hard to read font that's only glow in the dark on an incredibly intricate background. You can't tell what you're looking at or what you're reading. The book just, it actually hurts to look at. And so when they did the next pressing of it, they did away with that, and you can actually read the title. So yeah, it's like it might as well have been in Windings, really, for how well you couldn't see what the name of the book was, and for a fledgling company, that was terrible. From what I heard, that actually stifled their growth when they first started because nobody could read the book.
Okay, now, I'm going to bring up an example of
Oh.
why typesetting and good graphic design is very important in a minute here, but let's see what. Okay, we've got some comments.
Eloise, I heard that short stories are used for discovering writing, and that they reveal something about a subject matter.
That is one. There is no one approach, but yeah, definitely that works. Let's see.
I read that wrong. Discovery writing. Sorry. Cesario, I don't blame you, Ishi. If you don't want to review Empress Teresa, it's a ridiculous shit show.
That other show did a better job than we could ever do, anyway.
Yeah. That guy became obsessed with the rabbit hole.
I forget what that guy's name was, but yeah, that was. Oh, do you know? You were the one that
Crimson
told
Rogue,
it, right?
I think.
Yeah, you were the one that suggested it, I think.
And then Down the Rabbit Hole, I think
There you go.
they initially covered that.
Yeah. Those were the ones you suggested.
Well, he revisited. He was actually going to read Empress Teresa, and after an hour and a half, he still hadn't actually started the story yet.
Yeah.
It was him, I think, just doing the beginning, like I don't know. I just remember after an hour and a half of listening to it, he still hadn't started reading.
Okay, so we got a question for Fiona. Fiona, that.
How was blogging fiction working out for you? I've done it for 6 or 7 years to mixed results.
I did answer a little bit. It has gotten traction, and I've gotten more readers as I've gone along. And some people have already donated to the tip jar.
Awesome.
Like ye.
Cool.
Well, I would say the biggest success story to the blogging story, where it was free and it was episodic, was Metro. Was it 2031?
Mm-hmm.
Was originally done the exact same way you are, Fiona, and just over time it grew in popularity, and then he published it, and it was a hit.
See. The Martian guy did it that way, and also this one guy who, even though his brand of superhero prose isn't to what I want, it's more villain centric. He did a serial called Worm that apparently has gotten him a lot of backing on Patreon. I'm like, yeah, it can happen. You just got to keep sticking with it.
And Horizon Talker wanted to know what platform you use.
And yeah, it's Blogspot for right now.
Okay.
Blogspot.
Okay, now I'm going to give a quick lesson in graphic design and why you don't want to do it yourself. Now, this one's intentional, okay? This is actually a very good design as far as a logo, but there's a joke in here, okay? Now, if you look at the spacing, does it say good bad flicks, or did he actually trick YouTube into letting him put up good bad fucks?
Nice. Yes. Well done.
Yes. Now, he did this on purpose, but this is an example of a mistake you can make. And I think the funniest was a picture years and years ago that I saw in graphic design class where an actual video store had a place called Rent-A-Flix.
Yes.
And it looked like it said Rent-A-Fox.
Oops.
Or no, I take that back. It was Video Fox.
Oh, there you go.
It was Video Fox is what it looked like it said. So, yeah. It's always important to pay attention to that. Don't think you can just do it yourself. There is a real art form to graphic design. Let's see. Let's get through the last of these questions, and I think we're coming to the end of the hour.
Cesario says, I see a dick in the good as well.
Wait a minute. Let me open that up.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, I can kind of.
Yeah. Or is it in the bad?
Anyway, let's see. Are there any last? I call it Net Fox.
Oi.
Let's see.
I wouldn't give them any money though.
Nope. Fiona responding to Horizon Talker? Is that
I'm sorry. You know what? Maybe you should just really run the chat.
Oh. No, because I'm more discerning than you, and
And Dungeon Delvers just asked me Ursula Andress, Catherine Deneuve. Read his French.
Nouveau.
Yeah, and Charo twice.
I saw Charo in person.
I think. Are you telling me your favorites list?
He likes the hoochie coochie.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think this has been a fun show. Definitely. Fiona, what time are you available to come on the air? Should I? What's the best schedule for you?
But usually if they do schedule me at work, because no set days off for me, I'm usually 4 to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at work anyway.
Okay, well, we'll discuss scheduling later. But, yeah. People actually were asking about you when we went on the air.
It's like, no, I got here looks like maybe about halfway through.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
Real quick, Owen has a question for you. I just don't know if you want to answer it now.
Oh, where is it?
You were just on it. Down.
You drive, man.
Okay. Owen asks, I have a cyberpunk question. Is a city run on a nuclear power plant count as a cyberpunk because it plays a big part in Beetle Blaze?
I think a city ran on a nuclear power plant's just kind of normal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know what? Why don't we'll do cyberpunk next week, but I'll do this short answer for you. There's a real misunderstanding of what cyberpunk is. One, cyberpunk isn't depressing. It isn't supposed to be making you feel like shit afterwards. It's not supposed to hinge on horribly sad endings or making you feel like, the ending shouldn't be bleak. Cyberpunk isn't about a guy with a robot arm and a gun. Cyberpunk isn't about giant buildings and pollution or mohawks and neon. That's all window dressing. Cyberpunk at its very core is high-tech, low life. It's about an information-driven world on overload, culture's gone crazy, and in this world, your protagonists are in the seamy underbelly of that world. They somehow are diving into that, and they are not pedestrians. No, they are users. They are users of the system, I mean users. That's an old term. What would be the modern term? They are not victims of this world.
No,
they are basically operating on their own code, on their own rules, and making it work for them. They refuse to be roadkill on the information superhighway. How about that? We will do a whole episode on this, and I will explain, because it's never a bad time to talk about cyberpunk, considering right now it is such a thoroughly misunderstood genre. Rivet City and Fallout 3. No, actually, that is not. Sorry, I'm not going there. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it go next week.
You have dinner waiting.
Yes, I have dinner waiting. We've gone over an hour. You've gotten an extra 10 minutes out of us. I'll email you tomorrow, Fiona. But thank you for joining us. Do you want to give us pimp your stuff before we go?
Yeah, well, I guess I could. If you want something more in the vein of uplifting / superversive, which is coined by the Pulp Rev group, i.e., it's basically writing that doesn't put you down in the dumps like most stuff like The Expanse. Even though a lot of people enjoy it, it's very much humans versus humans. My stuff, it's more like good versus evil, traditional heroics, and superheroes acting like superheroes and not Watchmen.
Nice. I already want to read that. Definitely.
Yeah, what's the URL?
Here, I will post it. There we go. Okay, here's the link. Because I reset my blog to where it shows the main cast link and everything. I've already started book 5, but 0 through 4 are already completed and up there for people to read.
Why is it not appearing?
Oh, I linked it in the general chat.
Oh, okay.
Because I have the YouTubes open right now, but I can link it also in the private chat too.
Oh, it might not have populated yet. There we go.
Let's share this and put it on the screen. It's called the Uplift Trilogy.
Uplift Protocol. It's a series. Going to be a series of 13 main books, and I might do a couple of like one shots and anthology stuff later to flesh some things out. But for now, I'm not going to deviate from the main series because you don't want to George R.R. Martin yourself and do everything but your books.
Exactly. Right. And the Uplift Protocol, just as uplifts have a kind of a near dear place to my heart, considering I wrote an uplift story. It's about animals being evolved up to a higher level. Is that the right term, Fiona, or is it a little more involved than that?
Yeah, I would say that's about right. I mean, because there's a difference between just regular sapient animals that like to talk to you like Doug from Up, to use a visual example. Basically, all the Bardaxians in my series, majority of them are like Doug.
Cool.
And how about you, BGC? Do you have anything you want to promote or have people follow you on your channel or something?
I actually should have brought this up last time, but I do now. I've had it for a while, and I'd like to definitely invite people that of like minds, such as yourself, to my Discord, which I've just posted that. That's my Discord. I think that's the thing I'm supposed to share with people if they want to be able to visit and ask or invite, basically to invite. And I've had it for some time. And that's definitely in the parenthetical Dreamer Artificer is what I go by there. But that's basically it for now. I mean,
Very cool. And I've got the link there on the screen for everyone who wants to join up. Before we go, one more thing, please do not disconnect yet. For those of you who have just signed on, check to see if you're subscribed. I've been informed that people have been repeatedly unsubscribed from this channel, so please check. And tell your friends who aren't showing up here anymore to check, because there are people that we are close with that don't seem to know we're on the air anymore. So, and we're not on social media to remind them. So please get the word out. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. Come back next week. I think I'm going to start at 8 o'clock next week, just for the hell of it. 8 o'clock West Coast time. But we will discuss Cyberpunk, and no, Marv, Cyberpunk is not inherently anti-capitalist. Even all those red lefties who were writing it in the 80s were always having a struggle because no matter what they wrote, it kept coming out libertarian.
So true.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.